everyone. I hope you all can hear me. So today I'm going to talk about privacy on Rails, how to pragmatically comply to protection laws. So just a quick introduction. I'm Talysson de Oliveira. I'm software architect and chief learning officer at CodeMiner42. You can find more about me under the handle of Talysson in my beacons page. If you don't know us, CodeMiner42 is a Brazilian software boutique. We mostly work with Ruby, JavaScript, Go, Kotlin, and we've been doing a lot of stuff with AI. You can find more about us in our CodeMiner42 website. We also have the ai.codeminer42.com, where we have everything that we've been doing and writing about AI. And before starting this talk, I want to make a very important disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. This is an engineer perspective talk. So if you need legal advice about privacy laws, don't quote me on anything on that. Just talk to a lawyer. This is going to be better. So let's start with a small story. Let's say one day, you're a calm and peaceful day, you're there developing your app, discombobulating, clouding, or whatever, and you get an email like that. Hey, here's the 88, not that 88, it's Dustin Harping Holloway, and my lawyer, Verdict, that is copying this email. Please send me everything that you have about me. Also, delete my account. Thanks. Okay, thanks, bye. And first of all, it's usually a shock. Nobody wants to receive an email like that. But also, it's important to ask yourself, would you know what to do if you get an email like that? Because this can happen. This is something that the user has the right to do. Or would you freak out thinking, what tables store the user private information? What tables do I need to fetch the data and also delete the data? Are we able to remove them from the logs too? Do we have to delete it from the logs? Oh no, what about active jobs, payloads? Some of them do have private information, user information. How can I even find whatever I need to delete? How much time do we have to respond to this email? Are we breaking any law by not responding to this email right now? Are we going to be fine? Are we going to go bankrupt just because of that email? So try to calm down a little bit, think, and research. Okay, what are data protection laws? So data protection laws exist to enforce data protection and user privacy. They are present in more than 140 countries. Most of them don't apply just if you're based in that country, but also if you have clients and users in that country. Never forget that. And they're all about consent, data minimization, access right, breach notification, and purpose limitation. And I've been talking about private data for a while, but what is this private data that we're talking about? So maybe you think that is just the username and their user email and their phone and their government ID, but there's a lot more than that. We don't even imagine how much thing is considered private information. So maybe the date of birth and a lot of things can be considered private information and more. I couldn't even fit all of them in this slide. So pay attention that it's not just the username or their address or email or stuff like that. There's a lot of things that can be considered private data. So my question here is, thinking about that, make you sweat at least a little bit, because if this is the case, then this talk is for you. So what I want to say here is that privacy used to be a competitive advantage. Back in the day, I remember DuckDuckGo people, oh, I'm going to use that because it's more private than the other options. But I think that now privacy is a baseline for a product. You don't have an option anymore not to implement privacy in your application. You don't have this option anymore. Don't forget that. So if you don't have this option anymore, why do companies still fail to comply? So my answer for that is that because they treat privacy as just a legal concern. They put innovation above user privacy. And this is important to consider. Don't put innovation over user privacy. It's their data, it's their right to control that. So as a proposal how to fix that, how to implement that, how to be compliant, I want to talk about privacy by design. And my theory for this talk is privacy is an engineering quality attribute. A good quality team is able to work with privacy laws without losing innovation momentum. So privacy by design happens when you don't implement privacy just as an afterthought. You actually implement privacy in your application just like any other normal engineering constraint of your application, like we do for security, like we do for performance, like we do for responsiveness. And let's not pretend performance is not important, because if it's not important, we would not be complaining and discussing what is the best version of UUID to index in your database. It's important that you think about your user's privacy first. Again, don't gamble with your user data to pay for innovation. This is just a time bomb waiting to explode for dumb data to leak, and you go bankrupt because of a single user. And you can implement privacy by design starting with a set of principles. So there are three main principles for privacy by design. The first one is data minimization. When you're using data minimization, you don't collect data that you can't protect or you don't need to protect. Put it even simpler, less data is equal to less to concern about. And we like to have less to concern about. The second principle is private by default. Every data is private until you have an explicit reason to expose it. Otherwise, everything should be kept private. We have a lot of years about data protection and safety techniques, so data must be protected with any appropriate technical measure that we know about. And the last of the principles is transparency. Users should know and control what you store from them. Again, remember, it's not because it's just in your infrastructure that is your data. It's the user data, and it's their right to control it. Okay, so we did have some theory here, but let's start with privacy on Rail, or what you might be thinking right now, like, I'm not a liar either, man. Just show me the code, and I agree with you, so let's do it. So let's start with data minimization. Again, less data equals less to concern about. So one of the first things when you're implementing data minimization is minimizing the data that enters your app. And it's going to look like very simple, but understand this is important. So the first way to do data minimization that enters your app is using strong parameters. With strong parameters, you're going to use an explicit permitted list of whatever goes into your app. You should be intentional about it. Don't permit everything just because you might need it at some point. Be intentional. Just select what you actually want inside your app. And remember that if you filter the parameters in the entry point of your application, it's going to cover your whole application. You won't have to care and worry about all the time what data is being passed around, because if you filter it, you know exactly what is being passed around inside your application. So you probably know how to use that, but I put a small example here. For example, if you have a registration controller, you only want the data that is explicitly necessary to register some user. You don't need to add anything there because you might need it later. If you need it later, you add it later. Don't add it now and come into a risk of leaking that information accidentally. The other way to minimize data that enters your app is actually anonymizing the user's IP. So again, just like strong parameters, if you do it in the entry point, you don't have to worry about it in the rest of your application. And maybe you're thinking, well, but I do need geocoding in my application. This is important for it. That's fine. The technique that I'm going to say here is very simple and is still going to work with geocoding. You can solve that by just installing the IP anonymizer gem and set its meter to run after the remote IP. That's fine. That's going to solve the problem with IP. You're going to be compliant. This gem and another gem from the same family was explicitly developed to be compliant to privacy law. So you're safe using that. After minimizing what enters your app, it's also important to minimize what leaves your app. So one of the first, the main ways to do that is using explicit serialization. If you're going to send some data outside of your application, at some point, create an explicitly permitted list of whatever is going to be sent outside of the application. So a small example here, for example, let's say we're going to send an order to an outside product or for a third party or something like that. Don't leave it to Active Record, the full serialization to decide what to send. Make it explicit. Make it something that you control what's going to be exactly sent, the formatting that you want, and anonymize the rest. You also should be safeguarding about your error tracking strategies. So what happens is that error tracking services usually going to get the full request context of your application. So any PII that is in a request body and the params and the user IP and all of those. And you probably don't need that to debug. So you should use filter request params and also the log stop gem for that. You can use the filter parameters config. It's going to remove for any request logging any attribute that has these names that you list there, so you should add there any PII of your application. And also as a side effect, it also works with active record inspect. So anything that you put in there is also going to be filtered when you log that object. And when you're about to send the error to your error service, whatever you're using, you can use the logstop scrub method, passing the error. This is going to remove any personal information that might be inside that object that it would be a risk to leak at some point. You should also anonymize your analytics data. And again, innovation should not be at the expense of users' privacy. This is where innovators usually complain about, but I'm going to say something. If your business depends on exploring the user privacy, maybe you should rethink your business. This is important. So you should use the privacy-first analytics service and some consent-gated scripts. And you should anonymize any personal information that is sent to analytics. You don't need to send your user name for the analytics. You don't need that. Like, I know it's easier to just send everything, but think about your user's privacy. We'll see a little more about consent modeling, anonymization techniques in a future slide, but we're going to talk about it soon. Also, this is one, like, I don't know, I believe all the emails that interact with my life breaks that, and people don't understand how important it is. There should be no personal information in emails. Like, data can leak in email logs. If you try to send an email and it fails, the whole email needs to be stored somewhere with all the user information that was in there. So don't put personal data in emails. Enforce minimal PII in emails and filter email logs. And if you do need to send some information for the user that's like something that about them, send them a link. They can click, they need to sign in, and then they can see their personal information. And if you need to send in some file or something that they need to download, you should use a signed URL with an expiration date. So if for some reason the user forgets about that and someone opens it in the future, that link's not gonna work anymore. The good part in that is Rails supports signed URLs by default. You can use the message verifier API. This is going to let you implement the signed URL, implement the expiration date, and it's going to keep all the links that you send with your user to download with their personal information safe. And the last part about data minimization is that you should be implementing some data retention and time to live policies. So the important thing here is that you should not keep any unused data. Like, you should delete or anonymize old users that are not being, it's not active anymore. You should be deleting inactive sessions. You should be clearing solid queue completed job queues. And more important of all, you should be making it automatic. Don't leave it to do when someone invokes the law against you or when you accidentally remember that. Make it automatic. Make it as a practice of your team. One way to do that is you can, for example, create a job that is going to run, I don't know, once in a week or something. You define some retention period that's going to be like any user that haven't touched their account for the last 3 years is going to be inactive. Like, if they want to use it again, they're going to have to create a new account. You're going to find these users. Remember to skip the ones that have things pending. Like, if there's a user is still waiting for their order to be delivered or something like that, don't delete those. You're going to need that. But besides that, you can just anonymize anything from that user. We're going to see how the anonymize works in a second, but remember that. Do it as a practice. Do it all the time. Do it weekly in your application. Don't leave it to do only when someone from the law just knocks on your door. The second, just a second. The second principle that we're going to talk about is private data by default, meaning that protected data should come without extra effort. The extra effort should be when you're actually going to expose something that is private that probably shouldn't, or you do have a good reason for that. So one of the most important of all of these is logs. You should be logging with care. Logs are the first one silent leak. Maybe you're implementing all the other privacy by design measures here, but then you're logging the username, you're logging the user email, and you never get to find those logs in your logging service anymore. And when the user asks you to delete it, you don't know how to do it, or don't even know if it's possible to do it, because for some reason it's stored in some backup in your logging service or something like this. So always check everything that is explicit logging in your application. I'm not talking here just about the default Rails logging. I mean when you actually call Rails logger manually, check that. Pay attention to what is being logged because this will leak at some point. And again, just like we did for error handling, be sure to filter our request params and use logstop for them. Logstop also has another method called logstop guard that you can pass a logger to it, and this is going to like patch that object and make sure that anything that is a personal information that would be accidentally logged is going to be scrubbed from there, is not going to be ever in your logs. You should also be thinking about security of your application. You should be implementing encryption at rest for your models. The good thing that Rails already support 3 levels of data protection by default, like natively. You should choose based on the field's usage pattern. Like, don't just pick some of them because someone told you so. Understand the data usage of your application and decide accordingly. So I hope it's possible to see, but I added a small table here to help you decide on which one to use. So if you have some data that you need to decrypt because you need to show it, for example, the username or the email, you also need to search for that field. You can use the encrypt with deterministic true, and this is going to do it for you. When you read it from the database, it's going to decrypt it for you, and you can also search from that field using active record queries. And if you need to decrypt, but you don't need to search it, for example, the username or any information like that, you can use just encrypt without the deterministic, and it's going to work automatically for you. Just pay attention, like, don't just change to the deterministic true and expect it to working somewhere else. Like, you need to do it beforehand and really consider what is the data usage of each of these fields. And if you don't need to decrypt, you just need to get a hash on your database and then compare it with something like we usually do with passwords, and you obviously don't need to search for the password. You can just use the hash secure password method from active record, and it's going to protect that field for you automatically. Notice, this is all native. Rails is already prepared for that. You also should be protecting your cookies properly. Like, be intentional about the cookies usage of your application. A lot of people don't think about that until they use like a public computer, something that gets saved in the cookies. The next user sees some private information there. You should also be defining a proper same-site policy. And I say proper because you should not be using that like people do with cores, where you just change the option that they're using until the browser stops yelling at them. Be intentional about that. If you need to strict, you use strict. If you need to use lax, use lax. Learn about it, read about it. So here's a small example that you can use, for example, cookies signed in a permanent or cookies encrypted. You should learn the difference between those and why to use one, when to use the other, and like actually be intentional about that. Don't just use the default that someone told you so. You should also be making your backup secure. Like, you should always encrypt the database backups, and you should always adopt a retention policy for backups. Like, it doesn't matter if you delete all the users or anonymize, if your backups still have their plain data there. Like, you still have their data, you still have to hunt it down and delete it in case they invoke the law against you. Also remember to protect direct console access in production. Again, you can't protect everything, and just like logs, someone logs into your Rails console in production, and then they have access to every user data. They're able to decrypt the data because you're using those techniques for an active record. So you should be also protecting that. You can never trust anyone. So everywhere someone accesses the console in production, you should be tracking who did it, why they did it, and what they did it. So you can do that using these 2 gems, the console 1984 and audit 1984 for that. This is an example of how this gem works. If you log in that console in production, they're going to ask who is logging, what they're doing it, and every change that they cause is going to be saved to be audited later. And the last but not less important of the principles is transparency in data rights. Again, users should know and control their data. It's their data, it's not yours just because it's saved in your database. So we can start talking about consent and consent modeling. Consent is a very important thing in life, and in privacy it is the case as well. So you should have some form of consent model inside your application. And when I say consent, I'm not just talking about cookie banner. People read about consent when it comes to privacy. They immediately think about cookie banner. It's not just that. It's actually asking for permission for the user to use their data for marketing, for analytics, tracking, third-party sharing. And even inside features of your own application, you should asking for user permission for that. Each consent should be per purpose, version, and with proof that that was done in a certain computer. Consent should be explicit, meaning that if there's no consent, there's no action on your side. Always remember that. So one way to implement it is creating a model that represents each of the consents that the user granted for your application. You can list all the purpose that your application might ask for user permission to do something with their data. And remember to persist the IP address that made that change. What is the status of that consent? Like, is it granted right now? Is it revoked right now? What we're going to use to see if we can use the user data for that purpose. And then, for example, if you need to control the process of something in your application that depends on a consent, you can create a before action or anything similar to that to make sure that if someone's logging in your account that doesn't have the consent for that thing that you're trying to do enabled, you just don't do it. Let the user know that you're not doing that because they told you not to do it. And if they want to do that thing, you explicitly say then, OK, go in your dashboard and change it. And when I say dashboard, the user should have something like that, where they see all the permission that their app asked for them, if it's granted or if it's not granted, and they have an audit trail for when that was done, so they can track something happened with their data. So it should be very clear for the user what to use their data and how they can stop you from doing something with their data. And also remember that users have data subject access rights. So the users have access, rectification, and erasure rights over their data. And when a user fill a request to access those rights, LGPD, which is the Brazilian privacy law, requires a response in 15 days to respond. And GDPR requires a response in 30 days that can be extendable to 90 days. And maybe you're thinking, OK, this is a lot of time, but this is not a lot of time if a lot of users do that. You don't want people doing that manually all the time. So make the way to be compliant with data subject access rights as automatic as possible. Make it part of your application. So one way to do that is just like we did for a consent. We can create a model where we're going to have what is the type of the request. So the user wants to access their data. They want to change their data or they want to delete their data. And what is the status of that? And also, once the user fills that request, we're going to send an email for an admin or something like that. It's going to approve it. And once that request is approved, everything else should be automatic. So for example, we can just dispatch a job there with the ID of the request, and the job is going to do everything for us. So let's say that the user requires access to their data. How would they do that? Like, remember that email that user wanted everything that we want for them, and you ask yourself, I don't know where that data, the user data is. I don't know how to fetch that to send to the user. I'm going to tell you how to do that. You can, for example, create a concern called data exportable or anything similar, and create, for example, an exportable method, and you're going to use it in every model that you need to export data from. For example, in the user model, you can say, OK, when the user asks for their data, I'm going to send their UID, their email, their name, their phone, their date of birth, and everything else that I might need. And then when I call the export data, in every object that does that, I'm going to have all the information that is necessary to send the user. So for example, if the user asks for the information, I can have my job to use the serializer to fetch all the information from a user. And then I can send them with a very level of confidence that I'm fetching everything that they're expecting and everything that I legally need to hand them. And this is going to make me compliant to that request that they did. But let's say that maybe their request is erasure. They want you to delete all their data. How do we find all of that in the database? We're going to actually have something very similar. For example, this is the job that I showed you some slides ago. You're going to find that user, and then you're going to anonymize. We're going to show you how to anonymize in a second. But you're going to anonymize all the information from the user. And notice, I didn't even delete the user. I didn't have to worry about, okay, what if I do have some foreign key that is pointing to the user? This is not a problem, because the data is still going to be there in your database. Just the only thing that's different is that the private information is now anonymous. And also remember that once the users requires the erasure of their data, you should revoke every other consent that they were granted for you. Like, the user don't have to manually go there and revoke all of that. They ask you to delete everything, so you don't have the right to do anything with their data anymore. And making that is going to make you compliant with the privacy laws. So one way to implement anonymization is also creating a concern with that, very similar to the data exportable. You can create an anonymizable method, and you're going to use it. You're going to use it in your model, and you're going to say, okay, this is all the fields that I need to anonymize once the user asks for erasure of their data. And then after do that, you just need to call the anonymize method like we did in the previous slide, and boom, that's gone. Like, everything that is important, everything that is personal data is gone. And then you're going to turn like this kind of information that you have everything from the user to have something like that. Like, the structure there, you're not going to break any carrier or anything like this, but now it's perfectly anonymized. You have no personal information from that user anymore, and you're safe. You're compliant with the law. Okay, maybe I spoke too fast. I know it's a lot of things to remember, but there's one good thing. We're in an age of AI, right? Like, we don't need to remember everything all the time anymore. We can automate things like that with an agent skill. So while building this talk, I got to a point like, I had this realization. This is a lot of things to remember. People won't remember that, but this is still important. So that's why I want to present you the Privacy by Design Rails Agent Skill by CodeMiner 42. This is a way to bring privacy by design into a Rails workflow. It can be used in two modes, either in a complete code-based assessment in your database, in your code base of your application, or also you can use it as a review before you push or before you open a PR to make sure that any change that you did in that PR is compliant with the privacy laws. It's going to generate a thorough report for you and also offer fixes for you to help you to be actually compliant after that. And very important is this is fully open source, and all the scripts that are shipped with it are implemented in Ruby, so you can audit that and read all of it before running it, because it's going to read your whole code base, right? Like, you don't want that, if it's leaking information, you don't want that to leak to other people before fixing that. So everything is open, everything is written in Ruby, you can read it to make sure that you trust that code. You can install it using the skills CLI, or you can access it in the CodeMiner 42 skills repository. We have some other skills there as well. And after running it, it's going to give you an executive summary, like saying how many findings that you got, what is the gist points that you found in your application. It's going to give you a list of findings by severity. So these are the critical findings that breaks the privacy laws. This is why it happens. This is where it happens. This is the current code. This is my suggested fix for this problem. It's also going to give you a checklist of everything that you're failing to comply to privacy laws. And after that, after all this information, is also going to help you to build a plan to make your application compliant. It's going to help you to get to that point. So I want to end this talk saying that data privacy laws don't kill innovation. Rails is privacy friendly. Rails already have everything that you need to be compliant to privacy laws, and you should be respecting your users' privacy. Thank you.